ahead, start whenever.
You ready, bro?
Let's do it.
Let's do it, man.
Wow, we would have never believed this. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple, we're on Google. Go out there and listen to us. So we're excited about it. We're glad you're excited about it too.
Hey everyone, this is Dr. Rizo. I'm here with Mentality Unleashed, and today we're here with my friend Mike Green. I think this is going to be a great episode because he has an incredible story, and I think his story is different than many of the guests that we've had on. We've had pastors, we've had psychologists. This time, my friend is a veteran, which is going to be an awesome part. And his journey goes into many different parts of what we have going on. Mentoring, his journey with career, his journey with his battles, and how he also, his journey with his family, which I think is one of my favorite things that I would enjoy. I first want to do a shout out to Covenant Coffee. Do you know about Covenant Coffee?
Yeah, I'm familiar with them.
Do you know what they do?
Yeah, a little bit. I saw when I worked for the county briefly. I think I'd met a client actually, and we dropped a client off up there. So basically, employing foster youth and having a mission behind it.
Yeah. Did you taste the coffee?
No, I didn't. Yeah, I wasn't big into coffee then, but I am now. And then me and Mike have also talked about it a lot too.
Wow,
so.
it's bomb, and you need to taste it. So that's our shout out to Covenant Coffee.
That's what I've heard. That it's not just it's a good mission, but it's also really good coffee.
Well, and that's the thing, because working with foster kids, it's not easy, man. Yeah. Have you had any experience with that?
Yeah, so I'm a foster parent, and I'm actually currently fostering my nephew. So yeah, have a little bit of experience. I have very little working professional experience with them, but I worked briefly for the county with transitional age youth.
Oh.
And then fostering, I said the other day it was 5, but it was 6 kids, and then counting my nephew 6. Yeah.
Also,
and he's been with me for 2 years.
You've been in the trenches with it.
Yeah.
Is it easy or is it hard?
Super easy. Yeah, everybody should do it. It's not hard. No, it's of course it's challenging, man. Kids in general are challenging, but when it's another kid that you don't know the little ins and outs of, you don't know the things, and they come to you, don't know the trauma, you don't know a lot of stuff. It is challenging, but God's put the right people in my life. One guy in particular that I've did a Bible study with for almost 3 years now, started with the Mighty Men group. He was fostering before me, so he's poured into me so much. God put us together for a reason. It's a really cool story how we even got put together, but that's been awesome just to have that, and that's kind of right in line, I guess, with what we're talking about.
Well, and I think that's the beautiful story, and I think that's what I love about Covenant Coffee. It's not easy work. It's great work, and they also employ people who actually really, really desperately need it. You know what the studies show? That if foster students aren't employed, you know where they go?
Street. That's just a guess, but yeah.
The homeless.
Yep.
And the prisons.
Yep.
So shout out to Covenant Coffee.
Yeah.
So let's get on with the show. My friend Mike Green here. He has an incredible story, like I said. Mike, let's start from the beginning. You went to Iraq at what age?
21. We were briefly talking about that when before we came in here, and looking back on it, I'll be 40 in November, so just about a week and a half, and it's crazy.
That's crazy.
It's so crazy.
19 years ago already.
Yeah. It's crazy thinking how much at 21 you think you're an adult, and legally you are, right? You can buy beer, even 18 you can buy.
You can now buy cigarettes.
Yeah, you can buy cigarettes
at 21.
You think you're an adult, but I really didn't feel like I was an adult until I was 25, even though I was doing adult things. So yeah. Joined the military at 19, then got injured, lost my arm at 21, and I was just a kid.
You were a kid?
Yeah, I was.
Wow, what happened?
So I was injured in Samara, Iraq by an improvised explosive device. You probably commonly hear them as IEDs.
Okay,
They're just made up bombs by the terrorists that they put in the road. Mine in particular was a remote detonated where they just put it in the road and they're just watching a vehicle. Mine was the last vehicle, waiting for the other vehicles to pass by and boop, and hit it, or they'll hit the first vehicle to trap people sometimes, but mine just happened to be the last vehicle, but someone watching us and detonated it and almost took my leg too. Lucky to have that. Took my driver's leg.
Oh my gosh.
I was facing the rear, so I got my right side injured. He got his left side injured, and just thankfully to be alive. We almost bled out, and I mean it was a crazy story.
Dude, that's wild.
Yeah.
How long was the recovery?
The recovery itself, the physical part of it was probably. I was in the actual hospital for about a month and a half, because I had a leg injury too. So just getting up, getting my strength back, walking, little things like learning to shave. I remember shaving for the first time with like a
gosh.
single blade, donated razor. Just
as we're talking, which was your strong arm?
Yeah, dominant arm was my right.
No.
Yeah. So everything was different. Not only am I doing things with one arm now, but now I'm doing it with my non-dominant. How many times have you ever shaved with your non-dominant arm? Unless you've injured it, probably never, right?
I can't do anything with it.
Yeah, right? I'm ambidextrous now.
Man.
Technically, right? I'm ambidextrous if I had my right arm back.
So you had to learn everything from the very beginning, even to something as basic as shaving.
Yeah, something as basic as shaving. Even when I would hold like a fork or like a utensil of some sort, I reminded myself of how you see a child like learning to it. They grasp the whole thing rather than you hold it with your fingers.
Oh, man.
They grasp it like it's like a caveman. just grab the whole thing out. It was funny, man. So I had to learn a lot of that stuff. But the physical recovery was about a month and a half. Getting up, just learning how to even not learning how to walk, but just getting the strength to walk again, learning stuff like that. But then I stayed at the hospital for about a year, and a lot of that process was just getting the medical board process of getting medically retired from the military. But quite a bit of that also was learning occupational therapy. So learning to do stuff with one arm. They had a mock apartment set up, and you'd go in there and do like activities of daily living, stuff like that.
Because you can't automatically just learn how to write with your hand.
No. So
it's not just there. You can't learn to shave.
Yeah.
What's the only way to get there?
It's practice, man. We were talking about that again too. Yeah.
Just
practice.
Nothing but repetition.
Yep.
Oh my!
I remember my second week of college. I went up to a couple different professors, and most people type now, right? But I was, still old school, and I like to handwrite notes. And I told them, hey, I'm gonna, I lost my arm not long ago. I started college shortly after I came home, and I said,
you went back. You were right back at it now, man.
Right into college. I'm like, hey, I'm getting paid to go to school. I'm gonna get a degree. But I started doing that, and they're like, oh yeah, you'll be fine if you can't keep up. We'll get you a scribe. And I didn't want a person, taking notes for me. I didn't want to stick out and be any different. I'm already the guy missing an arm, So I never took the scribe, and I just
you never took the scribe?
Before I knew it, my handwriting was quick, and it was probably better than most men. Most men have pretty crappy handwriting, right? Mine's still better than most.
Don't judge me, man. Don't judge me, man.
It's like chicken scratch, right?
Parents, sometimes they think it's their kids' handwriting when they see mine. I'm like, no, that's the best I got.
It's that bad, huh?
Well, I have terrible fine motor.
That's most men. Me too.
And especially because I was ADHD. So when I write for a long time, I'll start shaking, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, wow.
So the weird thing about that still with me to this day, and it's been almost 20 years since I lost my arm, your brain, the right controls the left and vice versa, right? So when I'm writing still, like S's, 8s, I think it's maybe a 5, just ones that have these quick motions and go. Sometimes I'll just be writing in the middle when I get to those letters or numbers. Yeah. My brain will just stop, and it's almost like a pause, like, oh, it like forgets to do the motion. Like it doesn't just come natural. Like, and it's probably, again, I don't practice enough handwriting. I prefer to type now. I can type pretty quick, but
so your fluency's not even there still with your handwriting.
Not with handwriting for sure. I don't do it enough. I used to in college initially, and then I switched to typing and got pretty
just as a side note, what's wild. So I work in the field of identification of disabilities, disorders, and what I do is I'll identify ADHD, dyslexia, emotional disturbance, whatever it may be, and I'll even map out a plan for the college students, for their college career. Okay. Hey, in order for them to succeed, this is some of the accommodations that they'll need. And the accommodations, guess what? Is a scribe. Amongst other things. Yeah. And to me, I do it a lot of the time because I'm trying to help the student. Yeah. I'm trying to give them equity, right?
Yeah, of course.
But for you didn't take it.
Yeah. It was a pride thing like most men,
but if you would have taken it, though, how would your handwriting have been?
Probably 10 times worse. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, right? Wow. I know. I remember the second week, it was almost like it just came back to me. The second week I was writing really slow and really sloppy. And it didn't get much neater, but it got much quicker. And for the most part, I just found out that, being a lefty now, when you're writing, you're smearing the ink as you're, going. And
dude, that's wild.
I had friends who were left-handed. Like,
I do that now,
my whole life,
man.
They're smearing the ink. So.
I do that. I'm right-handed.
Yeah.
Gosh, well, it's because I write like that. Now, okay, so we talked about the physical journey.
Yeah.
Right? What about more of how you processed and how you coped with it? How was that journey?
That was different, but I don't know why a lot of veterans I talked to, I was in a fortunate position, and some might look at it as a disfortunate position, but my mom was coming from a stage where she was getting sober after being on drugs. My brother was also going through that. So when I came out of the military, literally, I talked to my brother and my mom. They were kind of couch surfing at the time, staying wherever they could. And I remember calling a buddy of mine who did property management, said, hey, man, I need a place. I need a 3-bedroom for me, my mom, and my brother. And I came back and we got a place together. And I processed out of the military as quick as I could. Once I got my orders that, hey, you're good to go, I was out in a week. And I came home and we got a place. But the cool thing about that was we leaned on one another. We were all in different areas. I'm a vet. A lot of vets, oh, you don't understand drug addicts. You don't understand. And you're right. I didn't understand their journey. They didn't understand mine. But you know what? Trauma's trauma, and recovery is different, but it's also the same in a lot of ways. So we really leaned on one another, and it was really solid. My mom had been sober for at least a year because she got sober I think the month before I deployed to Iraq and never looked back. And that was 21 years ago or 20 years ago, I think. So she never looked back. And then my brother shortly after there too. So we all leaned on one another.
Wow.
I had a vet come up to me and ask me, he's like, hey man, how did you deal with the mental side of it? The post-traumatic stress, stuff like that. And I said, obviously I had some symptoms of that, but I think the biggest thing I really look back to, I attribute to, is leaning on my family. We all were different stages, but we all needed help in certain ways. And me and my brother,
you guys met in trauma.
We did.
And you had each different trauma. And each one of those traumas by themselves are devastating.
Yeah. Yep.
That's why most people are homeless.
Yeah. Really?
I mean that. No,
I know. Yeah, mental health and substance abuse. Yep.
And you guys met in that trauma. And you guys were able to lean on each other. Well, when you say lean, I'm a nerd. I like to be specific. How did you guys lean on each other in those circumstances? Were you talking with them more often? Were you venting to them?
100%.
So you weren't keeping anything in. You were just constantly...
For the most part, I wasn't. I didn't have that mentality, too, that a lot of vets do, and understandably so, where it's like, hey, you wouldn't understand. You weren't there. And I would even sometimes be that blunt. And you're not going to understand that, just like I'm not going to understand your addiction fully because I wasn't there. I think it was just, we were always a pretty close family anyways and pretty tight. But then I think getting there, I didn't have any reservations about just being transparent. I remember it was my girlfriend at the time, but my wife now, we went to the Valley Plaza and she's like, hey, I'm just going to run in here real quick and grab this. And I'm like, I'm good. I'm going to stay in the car. And she's like, why? And where did her mind go? Is there a girl in there you're going to see? Her mind immediately went there, right? Like, is there a girl or somebody you don't want to tell? And I'm like, no. And I had to explain to her that at that time, it was just, some of those symptoms of PTSD. I didn't want to be in a big crowd. I didn't want to feel that nervousness. And she understood. And then, fortunate, she's been around a lot of veterans and got really educated in that and just different things of people when they're dealing with post-traumatic stress and knew after that. But it was things like that of just being transparent and saying, hey, this is what's going on with me right now, And
because what we see is when you refuse to accept, when you hold things in, boom.
Yeah.
That's where all that psychological pain lives.
Yeah, right?
Right? It doesn't
Stuff
just
it down.
automatically heal.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong. I am great at compartmentalizing. I'm great at that. But at the same time, it's a poison because compartmentalizing so much and so often, it just spreads like a disease.
Yep.
So that didn't happen to you. So what difficulties in coping did you have with this process or even after that?
I think my biggest thing initially was just being comfortable in my own skin. Now I have a visible injury, whether it's a small kid that's, Mom, look at him. And the mom's like, shut up, stuff like that. Being comfortable in my own skin was my initial struggle. And I remember shortly about, maybe 8-9 months after I lost my arm, I was walking across the street somewhere and it was like a group of like some women my age or whatever and just looked and smiled. And for the first time since I lost my arm, I didn't think, my self-consciousness, it's my arm. I just thought, hey, they think I'm cute, and I just went with it, but it was so much of a confidence for me because then I thought about it afterwards, like, oh, the one arm thing. But at that moment, I didn't because that's what I always went to, being that. But that was the thing that I got over. I feel like I don't want to say quickly because it still probably took me a year or two to be comfortable in my own skin and just hey, this is me now. But I think dealing with post-traumatic stress, and this was back in 2005 when I got injured. So then I got out in 2006. Where it really was still the mentality was suck it up and drive on. That's a military slang. Suck it up and drive on. It's not, hey, this is a real.
That's a man thing too.
Yeah, exactly. A man thing, especially in the culture of the military. It was suck it up and drive on, right? Rub some dirt on it or whatever. But now
that's how you survive too when you're out there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's part of the reason of survival. Exactly. It's not because men are bad or masculinity is bad. That's how you survive when you're in the trenches.
Exactly.
But here though, that same thing's toxic.
Yeah. And that's we're fortunate we're getting better there. We haven't beat it yet. And what I mean by beat it is the stigma of mental health in general. And that's what that PTSD was, right? Is your mental health. And at that time, it was, I wanted to hide that. That I didn't open up so much about maybe necessarily what was going on inside me there. And then it wasn't until, reading more into it, talking to other veteran friends and stuff like that, of realizing, okay, some of this is post-traumatic stress trauma. I was never diagnosed with it, but nonetheless, I had some symptoms and probably could have been at one point for sure, just with not wanting to go in crowds, constantly vigilant, to where these areas affected my life, really triggered really easy. Certain things that probably would have classified me to be diagnosed, but never had that. But I think it was just getting educated on it, being around other people. That's why peer groups are so impactful and so strong, because you can go to it and say, hey, you're dealing with this too. And it gives people power, and it also takes away the power that it has over you.
Yeah, it's essential. It's essential. So during that process, you were not only just getting support from your family, but you were actually meeting with groups too.
Yeah.
Oh.
So not as often as I would have liked, but we had a lot of good military organizations, specifically one that I started working for shortly, right before I got my bachelor's degree. I started working for a nonprofit Wounded Warrior Project.
Yeah.
Where I got to go on a lot of cool trips, even before I worked for them, where they would just take guys and military men and women, and just get them together. And the idea was literally just to do that, get them together, and you talk. Now you're in a comfortable setting, just like we said, with somebody that can relate.
Man.
Yeah, peer groups are so powerful because of that.
So that takes me into, something that we both do now. And part of that process is Mighty Men.
Yeah.
And what our groups is, right? What our mentoring is. But before we jump to where we're at now, let's take it back to when you first got started, and you first started your mentoring process. Take me back to that.
So it was really cool. My first time getting introduced, I told you earlier, it was kind of like my lukewarm Christian phase, is what I say. I knew God. I was saved.
We all have that.
Yeah, right.
We all have that.
Exactly.
We all have that.
And
I've
that's
had a few years of that.
That's what I call it. And I said, I would read my Bible. I'd go to church occasionally. Even I moved to Florida. I'm from Bakersfield, but I moved to Florida, lived in San Diego for a little bit, and then decided to come back to Bakersfield. We wanted to be back around family and our friends and stuff. And we came back here, and I went when Valley Bible was out at Cal State.
Yeah.
And I said, I want to start doing something and get involved. And I was even still drinking then at the time, where, and I say drink, and I was getting drunk.
Okay.
There's a difference between having a beer and getting drunk. I was still getting drunk. And I was telling this to Pastor Tom the other day. I said, I showed up one day hungover, and I thought, what am I doing? What am I doing here? Again, playing church, right? Like a lot of us do. And I just said, what I needed at that time, I definitely wasn't an addict, but I enjoyed drinking occasionally and getting drunk. But it was enough to where it affected me in areas where I didn't want to feel like crap at church, or I didn't want to feel like crap the next day. So
you want to be a part of the experience.
Yeah. So I asked, what can I do to get involved? And Pastor Tom's like, well, we got a bunch of different things, parking, this, and I was like, sure, parking. And I just did that. Well, funny story with that is people giving him crap and saying, hey, why do you get the one-armed guy out there carrying these 100-pound umbrellas? And he's like, I didn't tell him to go out there. He just wanted to get involved, and that's where he jumped to. I said, Mike, why don't you come on the prayer team? Get me out of the elements. But the big thing about
you were hungry, huh?
Yeah, that's what I said. I was like, I don't care. Whatever you guys have, whatever you need areas, and I got to know a couple cool people doing that. That were doing that ministry and still doing it to this day.
Why were you so hungry? What was going on in your life where you kind of like, I needed to be plugged into church?
I think just sick of playing Christian, sick of being the lukewarm Christian, probably God working on my heart too, and just saying, I'd been praying about this for so long, and then finally just saying, all right, let's do something about it.
Were you married at the time?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. How was that lukewarmness playing in your marriage?
So the really cool thing with that is, I met Pastor Tom. We went up at Cal State, and I'd seen him in church because I'd gone to Valley Bible pretty much my whole life. I'd seen a lot of you guys probably and didn't know most of the people there, and that's what my brother said too. When you get involved, the church shrinks, which is true, and he means that figuratively. But I met him up at Cal State, but then we went to the first men's retreat. I think it was in Sonora or Sonoma, somewhere up north, and I said, they've started this discipleship thing, and they're like, yeah, I think it would be really cool if we do this, whatever. And I was literally praying, and I'm not exaggerating, less than 5 minutes later, I was thinking, Pastor Tom, he's fit, and I was wanting to get back into fitness and stuff like that. And just made an impression on me initially. And just, if anybody knows Pastor Tom knows he's always connecting people, and he's talking to people and just connecting, right? And I was like, man, it'd be really cool for him to. And then he comes back not even 5 minutes later, and he's like, hey, me and Pastor Rom are just talking, and I think it'd be cool if I if I mentored you, Mike, if I discipled you, and I was like, I just got to smirk, and he's like, what? And then he's like, all right, you got to come up and share that with the guys. So immediately takes me up there, right, with the big group of guys we had up there, and they're announcing this discipleship program, and you got to tell the guys what just happened. I told them the cool little God story. It's literally less than 5 minutes ago.
Wow.
But I told him this the other day too, and I meant it from the bottom of my heart. I told this to my wife, and she's like, you need to tell it to Tom. So I was like, Tom took the fear out of a Bible study. It's like, I'm not a Bible scholar. I don't know the Bible. I still don't know it that well. But just going in a group of new people and a group of men and just going and talking about God, it's like, that's intimidating, especially coming in and you think, what do I have to offer? What am I going to do?
I don't even know what to say sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, what do I say right now?
People get this insightful thing out of this little pattern. Like, listen, twiddling your thumbs. I got nothing out of that.
And I got a list to go for 45 minutes too.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
But he took the fear out of it and took the mystery out of it. It's just men and women getting together and just talking about God. And there's no wrong answer. What's God putting on your heart? But he's done that over and over again, and even said, all right, Mike, now it's time. Your time. Like co-led one for a little bit.
How did that journey start? So you first started with him. You said, hey, I want to get involved. You plugged you in the parking. You saw, okay, maybe I need to pivot. You went into the prayer team. When did you start joining those small groups?
Probably right after that, or maybe even right before that. Right around the same time, probably, where it was Tom, who has a Bible study every day of the week. Yeah, which day do you want to jump on? I went, sure, okay, jump in. And so I jumped on his Starbucks
option for anyone.
The Starbucks one that he has specifically, I think, for 20 years or something like that. He's had this one going forever. So you have people coming in and out. And I've even been in one of those when I had a newborn at home. I went out for about 6 months and then came back into it. But it was just getting in there. And I remember being in there with, what's his name? Nathan Allen.
Oh my God.
Smart guy. He's a PA.
Nathan Allen. I just had his dad on the show a few weeks ago, Glenn.
Yep.
Oh my God. That's a small world.
It was really cool though, because obviously this guy, he's a PA, he's a really intelligent guy. He's a captain in the Army, just
smart man.
He's a smart guy. And I remember sitting there, and it was one of those times where it's like, I didn't get anything out of this. And he bumps me. He's like, me either, bro. And I'm like, all right, that's relatable. And I feel this, And it slowly changed, and I started, being prepared, reading a little bit more, praying, like, what's on my heart there. So it changed there. But
we went to youth group together. Me and Nathan did youth group growing up. And that's where, the small group process. And I think, for you, your mentoring process is different. A lot of the guys, for them, you know why they jumped in? They were like on the verge of suicide. Yeah. They were on the verge of like, they weren't going to go anywhere with their career. Like they didn't know what was going to happen.
Marriage falling apart.
There was this big risk. There was this big issue. But for you, you're more of this resilient type. It's like you have this crazy coping type mechanism where you're staying strong and you're just shooting forward. So your pathway of mentoring was you just wanted more of God.
Yeah.
You wanted more of that.
At that time.
You weren't happy, even though you were doing good. You weren't happy with that.
Yeah.
You wanted something else. So what would be more of that God thing? Was it more relationship? Was it just being more involved or more connected?
Let me back up a little bit. It didn't just happen where, I'm going to do this. That was a process where I had been that lukewarm Christian for a long time.
Oh, so dissect that a little bit for me.
Yeah, so I had been playing church. Like I think when I lived in Florida, I went to Florida. I lived there, I believe, about 2 years. I think I went to church like 4 times.
Wow.
I'd read my word occasionally. So I was still that really just, I wouldn't say lukewarm Christian there. I would just occasionally go to God. So it had been a process and just always on my heart. I think it's we've heard it in church, our pastor saying, Pastor Ron, that a seed was planted, you know, and it just wasn't being watered.
Yeah.
I would occasionally water it. It didn't die, but I would occasionally water it, and it just barely hanging on.
It's still landing in the right soil though.
Right?
Huh?
Yeah, right. And that was the thing when I came back and just, I think, got plugged into the right person with Pastor Tom, and just an easy transition to, like I said, take the fear out of just that's the small groups in particular. We always, harp on them at church, but that is where the growth happens. That's where you get to know people. That's where you said about fostering in the beginning. I got to have another foster parent really pour into me and give me some wisdom from getting involved in one of the Mighty Men groups. So
and this is why, and I think this is a beautiful, we can take this up, we can wrap it around. Part of your healing process was the obvious, you met with trauma with your family.
Yeah.
That helped, right?
Yep.
So
100%.
You weren't keeping it in. You were constantly talking about it, right? You guys were supporting each other in that process. But then another strategy that you used, and I say strategy because people can use it, right?
Yeah.
Is you were meeting in groups with people from the military.
Yep.
Right? What's the difference between that and a small group that we do?
Not a whole lot.
Right.
Not a whole lot. It's people connecting with one another and relating.
Now let's pull this back. what if you were going through your experience, right, with losing your arm and almost not being able to walk, having to relearn everything, and you didn't have your family there, and you weren't going to those groups? Where do you think you would be?
I unfortunately know a lot of people who are. It's either they get to where they need to be, but it takes a lot longer, or some of them don't. We talked about earlier with the foster youth, the ones that don't get that connection with that job, they end up on the streets. They end up, substance abuse. Oftentimes, maybe can even lead to some mental illness, or there's some stuff that was already there that it may be caused to come out. But I see a lot of vets there, and have seen, because I worked in the nonprofit too. So when I worked with for this nonprofit, I would lead and facilitate mental health retreats where we'd take vets out, and you'd see those guys, like you said earlier, that were on their last straw. That some, you come and a lot of them was like, hey, I just thought it was going to be vacation. I came here, and then all of a sudden you guys are throwing this therapy stuff at me, because we kind of just hid some therapy. But just peer groups, so we wouldn't get too
I do
deep.
the same with Jesus.
Yeah, right.
I'm just going to throw a little bit in that therapy group.
That.
There you go, baby.
But one guy in particular, I remember, he's like, and I'm still good friends with him to this day, and talk to him regularly, even though he lives in another state. He's like, well, I had a gun in my mouth last night.
Oh, man.
This is the night before the retreat. So these are the guys that
the chills,
you
man.
say, what happens if they're there? And I'm not saying I would have been, but maybe. You never know. So what would have happened there? The road would have been longer, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And the battle would have been more difficult for sure. And that's what we talk about. I heard, I used to attend this veterans Mighty Men Bible study, and they're meeting actually tonight, just right around the corner.
Right on.
And they said they have this thing where people say, oh, I'm the lone wolf type. They're like, wolves.
It's a terrible thing.
Wolves are not lone. They roam in packs. There's no such thing as a lone wolf. That wolf would die.
That's a terrible metaphor.
They roam. And that's what they say. They break it down. There's no such thing as a lone wolf, man.
Wow. Wow. Dude, that is powerful. So you joining these groups and leading these groups. Well, let's take this back. So essentially you've become the mentor now.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I didn't even look at it like that, but for sure.
Right? Because that's where I wanted to take us. Where are you at now?
Yeah. So Tom has me, we go when, on a Friday morning, someone specifically is like, hey, Mike, you want to start reading for this morning? And I try to do it Tom style, which is so awesome and organic. He has so many years in it. He can read it and just pull some life stuff out of it. And occasionally I can do that. But for the most part, I've got to prepare a little bit more. I've got to, know a little bit more what I'm reading, because sometimes I'm reading the thing for the first time. The Old Testament. New Testament I've read several times, but the Old Testament sometimes I'm like, I don't even know how to say the name of this book.
Oh man!
But it's caused me to prepare a little bit more, even though I'm just reading it and the guys kind of lead it. I don't lead it. It's just more facilitating and let God move.
That's it.
But trying to take Tom's style and just do that, and then halfway through stop and talk, and I can occasionally do. But it's really cool, and I've got to see him do that, and occasionally I can. But the last men's retreat specifically, I came back real heavy on my heart of just being a leader and how influential we are. And I mean we as just humans.
Yeah,
you're influential in your own little lane, whether you know it or
us.
not. And I came back with this heavy thing on my heart God put us to be a leader. And literally that week, Tom's like, hey, Mike, can you lead my Thursday and Friday Bible? Sure. It's like, God was just speaking to me. Why not? Step up and be that leader. And I was talking to somebody again today, a jiu-jitsu fellow veteran, and goes to VBF. And I said, dude, in 20 years, it's like, we are those people.
Yeah.
These guys aren't going to be there. We
That's
are
it.
those people at the church.
That's 100, man.
We don't have to be staff there, and some of us might be, but we can be those people that are the leaders in the church. And this is one for sure. If you guys know, shout out to Wesley.
My boy right there.
One of the big leaders there, and
That's
always
my boy.
stepping up and baptizing people. And you see him at the front door, and he's there if the doors are open. And that's another thing Pastor Tom told me. The doors are open, show up. I took that to heart for a while when I first started coming back.
Dude, that's powerful.
Yeah.
And so, we're about that 29-minute marker. One thing that I want you to discuss is how has leading this mentorship, leading these groups, this journey, how has this impacted the main areas of your life? How did it impact your relationship with your wife and kids? Because that's what I care about.
Yep.
I don't really care about how much money people make.
That's the meat
I don't
and
care about
potatoes
your
right
title.
there. Yep.
I want to care. And this is because I'm a busy guy, so I mean this. How did it impact your marriage and you as a father, and then you as a man in finding your own inventor?
So the first thing I'll touch on is the relationship, man. Like you said, at the end of the day, that's everything in my life, and that matters. My wife is a brand new Christian. When I say brand new, I consider myself new because 7 years ago I stopped being a lukewarm Christian and getting involved and having a relationship with God. But my wife just got baptized, I think a year ago even, and still doesn't know, the basic people of the Bible. And I said, that's okay, babe. You're new. You're not supposed to. But the cool thing was she would see me coming back from these Bible studies or these men's retreats or whatever, and just filled up. And she'd see it off me, and she'd be like, I remember one time she was like, you want me to do that, huh? You want me to get involved? And I never once told her, you should do this. You should. In my heart and in my head, I wanted to, of course, I wanted her to experience this. Not one time I did that.
Wow.
But she's seen it, and she kept seeing it over and over again. And she eventually went out and did it. I think because she just seen exactly, I was reading in James, I think it was 2 this morning, about just being doers of the word. And that's what it is right there, just being that doer. And you and I briefly talking about this too, about the season I'm in right now. And I know it's not going to always be this way, but I'm in a season of prosperity with my relationship with my son. My son's going to be 4.
That's
I'm fostering my 9-year-old nephew. I'm in a season of prosperity right now. So how it's affected my life, only one way is God. And I noticed too, my wife and I, we don't have this. We're like, hey, let's talk about God today.
Yeah.
We're talking. And by the way, hey, dude, I learned about this today. Check this out. Oh, that's so cool. Because in my Bible study, we talked about and it just comes up organically. And just like you said, when you sprinkle in that Jesus for a non-believer or for a new person you're talking to, it comes up organically now. And that's how it's supposed to be. We're not supposed to be knocking on doors and saying, hey, repent or go to hell. How many people
standing on the corner?
Yeah.
Standing in the corner?
You're not going to get anybody that way, man.
You know what your story reminds me of is, what we've just read is faith without works, right?
Yep.
I will show you my faith by my works, and the life that leads from that is what you have right now, and that's beautiful, man. I thank everyone.
Good, man.
Dude, that is beautiful, man. You have a good story. I knew this was a beautiful interview. All right, everyone. Thank you guys for joining us. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Like, subscribe, everything. All right, everyone. Peace, some chicken grease.